welcome again to another episode of TawkCrypto podcast. And we have an amazing and incredible guest today with us, who is someone that has actually achieved some, great things in the African crypto landscape. He has co-founded Big Tree Finance, and he raised around $3 million, contributed to Killing Network and Glacier Network, raising around $2.9 million and securing a parachain status for Killing on Polkadot and Kusama. And now he's serving as the co-founder of Fina Protocol. How would you explain what Fina does to them?
Think about the traditional markets that has to do with dollars, but the difference is 24/7, and then you can do a lot with your dollars in real time.
Do you have any last thing to talk to the viewers and the audience?
I would just say go for value, ignore the clouds.
All right, welcome again to another episode of TawkCrypto podcast. And we have an amazing and incredible guest today with us, who is someone that has actually achieved some great things in the African crypto landscape. And it's actually Agbuna from Fina Protocol, or let me just say Fina now, because they actually removed that protocol from their name. And he's actually the co-founder and CEO of Fina. And just let me give a little bit of background about AG today before he actually step in to actually give us the whole gist. So pretty much AG is actually a seasoned expert in marketing and operations across Web 2 and Web 3. He has co-founded Big Tree Finance, and he raised around $3 million. And after that, he has actually led the launch of about 2 projects in that same company, including the Concordium name service, which was later acquired. And he also, contributed to Killing Network and Glacier Network, raising around $2.9 million and securing a parachain status for Killing on Polkadot and Kusama. And now he's serving as the co-founder of Fina Protocol, and HG is actually building innovative financial, services in Africa generally. That is actually very, very mouthful, and it's actually nice to actually have you on board today, for you to actually get some of the knowledge and experience so far. So nice to actually have you on TawkCrypto today, AG.
Pleasure is all mine, and thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, I think we should actually just get into it as to what Fina is building. Personally, what I believe Fina is building, and what the major thing that I like about Fina is actually, the stablecoin backed fiat loans, right? Which is basically me as in Nigeria now, I can actually go and get, if I have a stablecoin that I don't want to sell, I can get fiat loans for that. And it's actually a very nice product, and that's why I've actually keep an eye on Fina for quite some while now. But then how would you actually introduce Fina to an average person out there that probably is not tech inclined? Probably someone on the road in Lagos, or someone in Nairobi, Kenya, that is not very, very crypto savvy. How would you explain what Fina does to them?
That's a good question. So if I'm to explain what Fina does to the average person, I think I'll use what I said to one of my investors, which is that think about the traditional markets that has to do with dollars, where the difference is 24/7, and then you can do a lot with your dollars in real time, right? So I think that's how we describe Fina. So at Fina, we enable users, like you rightfully said, collateralize their stablecoins to have access to fiat loans. Right now, we're presently only in Nigeria, and then we have plans of expanding to other regions. So I think in a nutshell, that's how I tell them, like, you have your USD dominated assets, and then you can actually have access to it 24/7, and you can swap it. You can use as an asset to collateralize to get loans impacting your local currency. So
Yeah, actually, that is actually interesting to hear. But I think now probably we can get to talk a little more about some of these model that you have, as to some of this product. I believe that you have quite a number of product and offerings. One of it is stablecoin backed loans, and then a lot also reflect to. But can you maybe talk a little bit about the major offerings that you currently have and that are in operation now at Fina?
Yeah, so I think our flagship product, as we like to call it, is the stablecoin backed loans. And then I think while we started we started getting feedback from users, because that's one of the things we what we listen to our users. So our users started saying things like, "Hey, I have taken a loan. The loan term is about to expire. I need local currency. I need Naira to actually be able to repay my loan and then uncollateralize my assets. But I don't have Naira. I have stable coins. And I would like you guys to give us the ability to be able to swap those stable coins to Naira so we can actually use that to pay, for this loan." That's how we started, on the platform. We now actually launched the swap where you can actually swap to stable coins and local currency. And then that's how that product came to be based on the users' feedback and whatnot. So what would you do with products? We started growing as a company. Your user base started growing exponentially. We started getting more and more requests. And then I think the next thing, I started seeing users say that they have USDT to put USD, you know, to the DOM accounts. To have USDT, they want USD to accounts outside the country. So that's how we're going to remittance and USD on and off ramps. So those are our major offerings right now. We're working on something very interesting, which is the mainness of our current product, which is the like Fina 2.0, that's what we call it. Right now, what we currently have is our MVP, and with that, Fina 2.0, there'll be lots of interesting updates there and new products there that we have actually, developed for our users. So, yep.
Yeah, I think those two major offerings are actually very interesting. The first one being the stablecoin backed loans. I think it's actually very interesting, considering, let's say for example, we take Nigeria as a case study. If we look at how our currency has actually been over the past forever. So, I mean, the currency has actually not been the best. The FX swings are very high. And now the whole essence or the whole gist around what I get from Fina and what Fina is trying to do is, if you as a Nigerian, you actually have, stable coins, you have your USDT, USDC, and you actually want to, you need some cash for whatever, and then probably you have about 20 million naira in USDT, and then you need some cash, but you can't actually access this cash because probably the rate today is actually very lower as to the amount that you bought it for. Now you can actually just take that stable coin to Fina, tell them, okay, I'm going to give this, and then they're going to take that. For example, let's say the market is down about, the rate is down about 20%, meaning you're going to lose about 20% of your 20 million. Now, which is that is about 4 million. And then instead of actually losing 20%, you take your stable coin to Fina, you get the a little less. I think it's over collateralized. You get a little less, probably you get 80 million. And then you can do what you want to do. And I believe the rates are not as high, they're as low as 1.5%. Is that true?
That's correct. That's correct. So it's 1.5% a month. And then just to answer your question,
Yeah. I think that is actually interesting because about 1.5% in a month, on that, and comparing that to the rate at which the FX rate fluctuates, I think that is actually a good market there. And yeah, that is actually one of the major products that I'm seeing, and it's actually something that we can work with. But technically, how does this operate on the back end? Like, how does this differ from, and I understand that it's over collateralized, but how does it differ from traditional bank loans, traditional bank, dollar loans? I can actually get a dollar loan from my traditional banks. How is what Fina is offering, different? Why should people actually, get loans from Fina Protocol instead of actually getting dollar loans from banks, from local banks?
Okay, so I think the first thing I would say to that is that what we're doing at Fina, we're actually allowing our users eat their cake and have it. So basically, we basically on the back end, what it means is that you have your X amount in stable currencies, and then you just lock it up and they have access in that value or close to that value in local currency, in kind of like in your local currency in Nigeria. So I think one thing I'll see about the difference between traditional TradFi is the fact that, first of all, the loans are actually, like, the interest are actually dominated in local currency, which gives you flexibility, because that's one of the challenges in such scenarios whereby you just have to pay the interest in dollar, whereas the proceeds they get from that loan they're taking is actually getting devalued in real time. So that is one of the major differences from what we're offering. And obviously, our services are available 24/7, right? So in the banking sector, you only have like 5 days working day and within a certain period of time. So I think it's like two major differences. So you can talk about flexibility. You can talk about the fact that you can actually move your stable coins in and around different wallets and have to go to the bank or have to use an app that is restricted, or you can only make deposits and you can make transfers to other accounts. So I think those are major differences on the macro level. But if I want to go a bit further, I would say, and then one of the most interesting thing about what we're doing is that we enable users to actually, apart from taking the loans, we kind of like create a scenario for them to be able to repay their loans as on a pay as you go basis, right? So you don't have to wait for the total loan term to expire, and then kind of like charge interest on a daily basis. So let's say, for example, you take the loan initially, they want to take a loan for like a week or a month. You can actually pay before that time elapses. And you don't pay the total interest that is meant to be paid. So let's, for example, you must take a loan for 30 days. You ended up having access to that instrument for like 15 days, you pay the loan for that. The interest will be calculated based on 15 days, right? So super flexible. So basically, we actually have our users, our users' interest in mind before more than anything like generating revenue. So I think that's some of the most important things about what differentiates us from the traditional system.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's actually interesting. I think the whole fact that your whole product is blockchain based is actually goes a lot way to give a lot of difference between traditional finance and what you're building. And just one thing that is that I'm a little bit curious about is I've noticed that when it comes to your stablecoin backed fiat loans, one of the stablecoin that is actually used is actually the CUSD, and I'm actually curious. And I've also actually seen that you partner with Celo DAO Africa. But why USDC? Why CUSDC? We have USDT, we have USDC, but why specifically USDC? And what's your relationship with Celo?
That's a good question. I will not say um we are specifically interested in certain stable coins. We look at the most stable and the ones that our users actually hold, right? So initially we went to market with USDT, and then obviously we have a relationship with Circle, with the program that actually we're part of, and then we listed the the USDC. And then with Cello, we had like we're part of their growth grant program, and then kind of like one of the relationship we have with them is like enabling the network and always listen to USD. So I have a good relationship with Cello. However, the most important thing for us is like the stablecoins our users actually hold and utilize are the ones to provide utility for. Several other stablecoins issuers have actually reached out to us, but then obviously we'll go for the most stable ones that have not had any concerns with in terms of like the pegging and whatnot. So I think to answer that question, as a CUSD, obviously we have a good relationship with them, and then obviously we have users that actually utilize the network, and it's a very good relationship we have with them and our users as well, for using that particular stablecoin and the network.
Oh, that's actually interesting. But are they actually like especially considering the markets that you focused on, which is majorly the emerging market generally, but majorly Africa, and are there any like real success use cases that you've actually gotten from probably businesses using Fina protocol, Fina's Fina's uh product and offerings? Are there any businesses, maybe individuals, or are there like success stories that you can actually share with us right now?
Yeah, of course. I think we're very early when we started. I think at the time when we started Fina, it was more or less like we had a single page on the website that's we call it the calculate. And then the reason we call it that was that it was the proof of concept of what we're trying to build. So what users could do at the time was they have to go to the calculator page, put in I want X amounts in local currency. The calculator tells you, okay, you need X amounts in stable coins. And then if it's something that you're interested in, you click proceed, it takes you to WhatsApp. So it's on WhatsApp, you do your KYC. It's on WhatsApp, we give you wallet address to send the funds to. It's on WhatsApp, you send us your bank account for us making deposits to. So it wasn't like a completely automated system. So one of the things we did back then, which was quite interesting, we had one of our very early adopters. He wanted to get an inverter system, right? And at the time, the setup was going to cost roughly about $5,000, in value. And then he came to us, and then we had this conversation, and then we gave him the facility for that, collateralize that $5,000. Interestingly, that period was was a very volatile period for the NGN because there was massive loss in terms of like value against the USD. Long story short, at the time when he was repaying his loan, he literally saved roughly $1,000 in value for that single transaction. So I think to us that's one of our biggest success stories because we saw it in real time. We saw him, we had the chart and everything, like the whole transaction on the DV, but it's something that was kind of like very, very special to us that, oh, we actually helped these guys see a value. And in fact, to tell you, to give it further, one of the reasons we actually started Fina personally was because I was in a very opportune situation between um two individuals that needed a financial facility. Was because there was no existing tool for that, it couldn't work. There was a user in Nigeria that has access to that needed local currency in, naira for a contract, and there's a user in Canada that had access to liquidity and he was willing to give out, instruments to people who actually need it. I was in a position that I was able to bridge that gap. But because my concern was if I get the user in Canada to bring those resources to the country, this person utilizes it and repays the loan in local currency, there might be like some kind of discrepancy in the value. And then I'll now be a Nigerian, you understand? So I had to like stay away from that. But then if FINA solves that, literally. So I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, definitely. You sure did. It's actually very interesting. I believe Fina has actually, or it has actually definitely, contributed to a lot of individuals and businesses in the African ecosystem. And I think there's still quite a lot of way to go. But yeah, and you've actually achieved a lot of things so far in the past. Take a look at, some of the, I believe you won a grant from Circle. You've had some notable achievements, especially 2024. I believe you had about 10x growth on your monthly transaction. I took a look to check some of the blog posts that you put out. But what has actually been the best or the biggest you know achievement for Fina so far?
I would say so Fina is an interesting product because we started generating revenue in our first user, like our very, very first customers. We made generated revenue from that person. So I'll say Fina has been this product or this project that you just know is going to do well, and you're really, really confident in because of you're seeing the stride the team is going. You guys actually come to work every day, pushing the needle, trying to get things done. So I think I would say a number of them. I'll say the first one being we were able to close a family and friends round of 100K. So got an investment in to actually enable us to develop the product, which is the MVP we're currently using. We're able to launch several products, which was obviously the swap, across the USD on and off ramp, and a couple of other services in house. We are not loud. I think we've processed pushing $30 million already, and then this is like maybe month 7 or 8 of we actually being an MVP. So we are very, very low key. We don't put all our achievements out there, but it's something that's in time we're actually going to start doing that because there are lots of projects that actually get on the hype very, very early, and then the floodgates open for the users, and then you can't get to realize that there are lots of bugs, and then obviously everything capitulates. So what our approach is to actually first of all slowly, quietly build a solid product, onboard a couple of users to use it and stress test it. And then after a period of time where you know that, okay, you have a very, very solid product that have actually processed X amount of transactions and volume, you have X amount of users, then you can start making you cannot go for the hype and the clouds and the noise and everything. So that's has been our approach to development. And yeah.
Yeah, that's actually very interesting. And one thing that I've always had, concern about, and I've always been looking at, well, especially with projects building in Africa specifically, is regulations. And it's actually very paramount because with the product you're building is more of it falls in the category of like fintechs. And one of the problems that fintechs have been having in Africa is regulations generally. And when we look at countries like Nigeria, like Kenya, Ghana, South Africa, which I believe those are your probably major markets, because in terms of adoption, those are the places where in Africa, adoption of crypto is actually very paramount. Now the problem is, in Nigeria, for example, recently, about last week, I believe, the president signed a law, and which actually placed, virtual assets under the SEC purview. Now we can look at that as one of the how that is going to impact some of your product and some of your offerings. And then you look at countries like South Africa and Kenya just recently are now placed under the FATF watch list, which is basically the counter-terrorism and anti-money laundering body. And now they are currently on the watching list. They are on the gray list, which means having anything financial processes in those countries would actually be a problem. How are you going to be able to work around these restrictions with regulations in African countries?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. And when it comes to regulation, it's something that has to keep our eye open for at all times. Matter of fact, before I started building, I got a legal opinion from a very well respected law firm on how to go about acquiring licenses. I'll tell you for free. As of today, we have 5 licenses already in Nigeria.
Oh wow!
And it's like I said, we work under the hood. We secure the license. We are regulatory compliant. No, and then one of the things I was going to say towards this is that the ultimate license for any operator in Nigeria right now is a basic license, at least a provisional license for the time being. And then the reason for this is that we're taking the right steps to ensure that we're in that conversation. And then obviously our approach is obviously we're looking at the Kenyas, the South Africa, but they were looking home first. So Nigeria is the biggest market in Africa in terms of Web3 and crypto, and then that's where it is for startups. So when you succeed in your home country, that's where you have the right to actually export it. So I think our primary focus is Nigeria or even West Africa, I would say. Yes, with regards to regulations and those are licenses, we have that very much, undercover. We have a couple of licenses in Nigeria. We have license to actually offer the lending service. We have a license to ensure that we're actually compliant in terms of anti-money laundering, EFCC. You have license to ensure that, we have the NDPR license. So we have a number of these licenses already. We're going to prefer the big one, but then obviously we understand that it's kind of early days and it's going to be a little bit difficult, but they want to be in and around those conversations. So the goal is as well to be regulatory compliant. So
I get that, and that's actually true. The major way to actually key and get into a particular jurisdiction is actually to play right with the regulators, and I think you're actually doing that just right. Consider that you already have about 5 licenses in Nigeria, but apart from working closely with regulators, one problem that you might face again specifically, which is one problem more peculiar to the African ecosystem, is there's a lot of loss of trust for maybe banks or like financial entities generally. And how are you, especially now considering that crypto is what is basically magic internet money, and a lot of the older generations are not that keen into it, and majorly mostly it's still this old little bit of people from probably 40 upwards that would even want this product in terms of loans and a lot of things. And now the problem is, how are you able to actually address some of the critics that you see when some people, an average person in Nigeria or in Kenya or whatever, actually would just say this is just some sort of another cash grab or whatever, or another big company that tries to another company that just tries to capitalize on the trend. So how do you pretty much undo that? How do you sell how do you sell Fina to those people?
to be honest with you, if someone is a critic, you just ignore them. You don't you're a critic, you ignore, And then if you have to engage them, you just tell them your value props. And then if it's something that interests them, cool. Because the truth is that you don't go to people that don't want to buy. If you want to buy, you have an open mind. But if you don't want to buy and you're criticizing me, I don't have any business with you. Or just cool. You think this is some scam or some guy. Okay, cool. If that's what you think, I won't want to waste my energy. I have a lot of things to do and then start spending time trying to convince. That's not my place. That's not.
Yeah, I totally understand that. It's quite something. But one thing that I actually want probably just to round things off is what's actually next for Fina. Are you expanding? Are you going to Latin America now, or probably we're going to see you in Iraq, the Middle East? They're all emerging markets. But what's pretty much next for Fina?
One of the things I like to say is that make your legs strong for ground first before you start to the raw. I think is consolidation for us. First of all, yes, the expansion, obviously everybody wants to expand, but the most important things for you is that, because the truth is that if you look at a newborn, there is a period of air is very important, but to a newborn, too much air can actually harm the child, right? So I think that's where we are, the point whereby we're trying to make sure that you have, first of all, an MVP that is stable. Secondly, that is robust, that can actually handle billions of naira or billions of dollars in transactions. When we have that strong network in Nigeria, because again, Nigeria is the biggest market in Africa in terms of crypto. When you have a market share in Nigeria, then organically, because I've seen it happen, you within your users, you start getting demand for other regions. You don't have to start be the one to actually go and start engineering that expansion. Because the truth is that what I've learned from my little career in tech and in Web3 is that if you're the one that created demand, you'll be the one to supply that demand, and then obviously you'll be the one to pay for that demand. But when your users actually demand for it, that's where there's an opportunity. And that's how we started with the swap. Initially, we were doing all the crypto bank loans. Our users started demanding for swaps, and then we enabled that. So the way we go about expansion will be based on demand. If you have users saying, hey, we want to utilize you to do X, Y, Z in this region, we'll be there to fill that demand. But then we'll not be the ones to try to engineer demand just because of we're expanding. So I think that'll be the approach that's I believe we want to take. So to answer your question, the biggest thing for us right now is Fina 2.0, which is a solution that actually comes with a lot more use cases and a lot more robustness and abstraction for our users. And it's like you rightfully see in one of your previous questions, what actually targeting fintechs, and then that's what we're going to do with Fina 2.0. So once to enable users to actually have access to this solutions without having to know if it's crypto or what wallet address is under the hood. Basically, they're going to see US dollar, can do whatever they want to with it, and then it doesn't have to be CUSD, USDT, or USDC, right? So that is the most important, exciting thing for me in terms of like the next steps of
Yeah. I think I got one thing that I actually could catch. At least I can keep in my pocket, which is pretty much consolidate before expanding, or consolidation before expansion, which is actually very nice. Get to know a particular region well and master the place before you actually move to other place. That's actually very interesting. AG, it's actually been nice to have you today and discuss the whole thing that Fina is building and your own even personal journey. But do you have any last thing to talk to the viewers and the audience? And probably if you can just tell us a little bit about where we can find you personally, and also where we can find Fina.
Right. So right now, Fina is on Apple and iOS Store and Play Store. Sorry, just search the name Fina and you find it there. I think where to find me, I'm online, and you can find me on Twitter at AGWONA. That's my normal name, and you can find me on Telegram as well. Any last words? I'll just say, go for value, ignore the clouds. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, so thank you so much for actually joining us today. And if you actually want to actually get to meet AG, his links and links to Fina is actually going to be in the description of this video. And thank you so much again, AG, for joining us, and we look forward to actually having you again some other time.
Awesome. Thank you very much, TawkCrypto. I look to everyone.